got some absolutely huge news coming out. There's a surge happening, but this time it's not for Kamala Harris. I know that's what you were expecting. You're like, what? Biden is surging? Yeah, that's right. So it looks like Joe Biden is actually surging. So Biden is now a lame duck. You know, he's president, but he knows he's going to be gone, and he's not running for re-election. He ended up dropping out, you know, in I think late July. So he has dropped out. And what it looks like is happening is his job approval is actually going up. So a new USA Today Suffolk poll has dropped, giving us some numbers. So it says President Biden's job approval shift from June 30. So approve is 48%, disapprove is 49%, which is unfathomable because he's near, in this singular poll, he's almost near 50% approval and almost matching his approval and disapproval numbers. And we can see that from just June 30th, like a couple months ago, the shift is +7 in favor of the approval and then -8 for the disapproval. So we could see a massive, massive shift happening for Joe Biden. This is absolute insanity how much of a massive shift this is. Unfathomable how huge of a shift this is. And we can check the aggregate numbers as well. So if we do take a look here at the average numbers, we can check out approval numbers. Approval numbers are different than favorability numbers, actually. We'll look at that as well. But what you can see here is his average aggregate disapproval numbers is 10.1% right now, so minus 10.1 approval. But if you look at where his numbers were in the past, and so through June, all the way even through May, he's in the 17s and 18s. In June, he's in the 18s, right? 15, 17, 18, and then July, he's in the -20s. So he's gone down like 10+%, at least 7 points. Just in the month of August, he was kind of around like these 17, 15 numbers. But really, if you look down to his sort of bottom marker, right, right after the debate, he's down like 20 points. So he's increasing the aggregate from anywhere from 7 to 10 points, which is insane. His disapproval is 52.4, his approval is 42.3. So he has this massive surge going on. And this surge likely has to obviously do with him dropping out and becoming a lame duck. So I guess a lot of people are probably approving of him because it must have been tethered to him running again, and maybe they're happy that he's gone. You know when something is happening and then you don't really like it, but you're just so happy, you're like, oh man, it's all going to be over. Maybe you don't like school or something, or maybe some food you're eating, but you have to eat it, and you're just so excited that it's going to be over. So I think for a lot of people, I guess they're so excited that he's going to be out that the approval is actually surging for him as president right now. Their approval of him as Joe Biden, as the person who's running. So we can take a look at some of these numbers. Another interesting thing about these numbers is there appears to be a really, really high variability for these numbers. So much higher variability in approval polling and I think favorability polling as well than like national polls and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, if you think of it as like a random variable like x, you know what I mean? It's like, man, e of x squared minus e of x squared is fudging massive, you know what I mean? So the Suffolk poll, disapproval +1. Active vote, which is, they have disapprove +5. Active vote is super sus, though, and it's August 1 through 31. I don't really take them seriously anymore because their poll numbers, if you look at their crosstabs, don't make any sense, and Nate Silver actually just removed them from their aggregator as well. Redfield and Wilton +1 disapproval, which is really, really close, man. Only +1. So that's two of them with +1 just in the recent times, right? The Suffolk University poll being 25 to 28, and then the Redfield and Wilton one being August 29th, right? Which is a really, really huge deal. To be fair, though, Redfield and Wilton is a D-rated pollster, so I don't take them super seriously. Clarity Campaign Labs, 23 through 28 is +11, so a lot of variability happening here. Fabrizio, you can't take seriously. They're a Republican pollster that's literally employed by Trump. Disapprove +12 is the margin here. So we have these like really large margins going on. Quinnipiac +7, unfavorable. Big Village +7, 10, 11. Here they have registered voters doing worse than likely voters. YouGov is 12, 16, 13. And so we have all these numbers happening here. You know, there seems to be kind of an increase in recent times, these recent ones that have been added. So these are the dates added. And so there appears to be some surge going on with the recent polling. So is Biden going to continue his surge? I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be pretty interesting. Another important thing to note about this Suffolk poll that dropped. So a lot of the pollsters back in 2022, there was like this big influx of like these trash pollsters that were coming out in 2022. So what I'm gonna try to do is kind of look at the polls and see who we look for. Suffolk was actually the best. Their average error in the polls were actually the smallest. So it was 1.9. They have the smallest average error out of all of them. So I think we should take them seriously. NYT Siena 1.9. Survey USA 2.4. Alaska Survey 2.2. Echelon 2.4. 2.9 Beacon Research, that's the one that Fox News uses. So what I would say is these are the polls for at least especially for the down ballot races that we need to take really seriously, because they're all beneath 3 points average. Marist, you might be able to take as a 3.0, and then here are a couple of them, but anything beneath 3.0, I would say you can't really take seriously. There's been a flooding currently of really bad pollsters, and so what you can see is Wick is someone that's been dropping polls recently, and Wick is actually the worst one on this entire list. And they've been dropping a bunch of polls, and I think Spry Strategy is also somehow related to them with some kind of familial relation. Insider Advantage, another Republican pollster, one of the worst ones, 5.3 average off, which is huge. Trafalgar, another one that's been dropping a lot of polls. They're also 5.3 in favor, so be careful, because a lot of these polls that are dropping are actually from these shit tier pollsters. Rasmussen, another one. RMG is also dropping a lot of these. The Remington Research Group. Fabrizio also, though Fabrizio's error wasn't as bad as the other one, so they're not too terrible. They're only like 0.2 off of the margin that I was actually making for the marker. So you should keep an eye out on those polls. Another interesting thing is approval is actually different from favorability. So Kamala Harris's approval is also surging, so it's surged massively. So not only her favorability, but since July it was plus 14 disapproval, and now we're only up to 5.1, which is huge. ActiveVote, again, a weird poll that I don't trust, but ActiveVote has disapprove at plus 8. Redfield and Wilton has approved plus 1. Suffolk has it even, or some rounding is going on. Maybe the approval is less than 1, so they just rounded it down to 0. So maybe it's like some number, some real number that's like really close to less than 1, but less than 0.5 as well, so they probably rounded it down. So Suffolk University is the same pollster, again, really, really good numbers in terms of 2022. Fabrizio has plus 9, again, super sus, right? ActiveVote also very sus. YouGov plus 5, disapproval. YouGov plus 4. Echelon was plus 2 approval, and they were pretty good in 2020. Ipsos is plus 9, which is, again, kind of sus, though. Ipsos I trust, but a 39 approval, given that nobody else is in the 30s anywhere, is really, really sus, so it makes me not want to trust that poll. Qantas has them even, which is pretty surprising, because it's a partisan sponsor, and Qantas polls, like, they retweet, like, the people behind them, like, retweet Elon Musk and run cover and fire for Trump and all that stuff, which is weird, too. But we can see all these numbers. So pretty good numbers for Kamala Harris as well. And then in terms of the favorables as well, I think for Joe Biden's favorability numbers, his favorability has not actually really boosted much, if at all. So his favorability is not really going up for some reason, but his approval numbers are. They aren't the same, though. And then Kamala Harris, her favorabilities are just massively, unfathomably surging. I'm hoping that she's actually able to reach that 50% marker of favorability, because I think if she crosses 50% favorability and then Trump is underwater, but I want him to go down to like 42, I think at that point it should be impossible for Kamala Harris to lose, just mathematically, I feel like. But if she's at 48 and he's at 44, I don't think that's enough to say, oh, she's going to win. But let's say she's at 50.8 or 51, and then Trump is at 42. I think at that point you can definitely conclude, like, yeah, this should be guaranteed for Kamala Harris. So really interesting stuff happening for Joe Biden, right? So Joe Biden is actually surging. A lot of people, how much does that impact his presidency? Do people look better on his presidency? It'll be pretty interesting. He's getting back to like a bunch of his 2023 numbers. So he took like a big boost in approval numbers during the 2022-2023 times. So he's kind of getting back to that point. So he probably doesn't grow too much from here. I'd say maybe a little bit, but I think people are just so happy that it's over that they're feeling better about Joe Biden. And people are probably going to look at this and be like, they're probably looking at Biden and feel good that he dropped out, because they feel like it was a selfless decision to kind of drop out, and they're really happy about Kamala Harris. And so I think that that's trickling down on him, onto him. Maybe there's some kind of like golden shower kind of thing, where there's this trickle down effect on his numbers. So we'll keep an eye on this to see if Joe Biden continues to surge, but it looks like there is indeed a Joe Biden surge, not just Kamala Harris.